All right, so you got two handouts today. One is your last assignment of the semester. It's not your final. Remember, we still have that final portfolio, but this is the last non-portfolio assignment for the semester, which is 106. We're going to continue working with the cabin that you worked with in AutoCAD, only this time we're going to work with it in SketchUp. If you didn't like your cabin or you want to change it, you can totally change it, but the same program applies. So you can change your settings. If you find that modeling some curves in SketchUp is really challenging and you want to adjust, that's okay with me. But we're going to continue working. I think SketchUp is a pretty self-explanatory program in terms of getting into it. So a lot of what I will focus on in the last bit is how do you get stuff out of SketchUp, collage, make good quality images from it, as opposed to just the generic, oh, it looks like a SketchUp model, which is the big gripe about SketchUp. SketchUp's a great modeling tool. It's fast, but it looks like SketchUp when it comes out. So we're going to make sure that it doesn't look like SketchUp when it comes out so that you can use it and have pretty good success with it. So in terms of what we're creating, you will do one elevation view, you will do one plan view, you will do one section view, and you will do one perspective view. You will then look at all four of those, and we'll do these each in class together. You will look at all four of those, and you will pick your three best ones, whichever three those are, and turn those three in. So if one of them really doesn't turn out and you don't like it, you don't have to turn that one in. So it'll be the best three of four, and you're picking which three. These are all due on Monday, the 9th of December, which is the last official day of class. Remember that the way that it's set up, you will turn in your portfolio that day on Monday the 9th, but on Wednesday the 11th, if I do my math correctly, you have to come here and say hi and check in that you're here, and then you can go work on your other stuff. Because I know you all have finals to study for and whatever, but that's the way they're mandating that I hold class during finals week, but it's not really finals week. I mean, somebody in the administration should figure out how to do this correctly like it used to be done. But it is what it is. It's the 16-week semester, so that's what you guys get. All that being said, because of the 16-week semester, and because of the fact that we had both Monday Labor Day off and Monday Veterans Day off, we're one day short of where I like to be in the class, which means that there is a exercise 123. Notice we skipped from 122 to 124. Most of you probably didn't notice that. There is an exercise 123 that I use as like an introductory SketchUp exercise where we go through some basic SketchUp stuff. That gets skipped for you guys because I don't have enough days to do it. So you basically get a pass. Everybody's going to get 100% on exercise 123. So life is good. Pad that grade, right? That's like your extra credit right there. So we're skipping over. We're going to do exercise 124. Don't worry, the 136, my other class, they have the same problem. They have to skip a day in there too. They're not skipping today. They're skipping a different day. But it's the same thing that happens. It's just the way the semester plays out. So I apologize for that, but it is what it is. So all of that, exercise 106, is due on the December 9th. So we'll be ready for that. We will do a bunch of this in class. So we start today on 124. Then you'll notice that I have 125, 26, 28, and 29 are all days where in class we will do these. So 125, next class, we'll start with the elevation view. Then 126, we'll move on to, I think it's the plan view. Then 120, we skip 127 because we do portfolios on 127. Then we go to 128 and we do the section view. And then on 129, we do the perspective view. So we build our way through. So you will have one full class day for each one of these views, getting ready for the assignment. Many of you will be able to finish it in class and it won't take too much extra work, which is good. Do remember, though, that the final portfolio is due and it's coming up. And you've probably forgotten about it, and you probably haven't been working on it. Like I suggested in the beginning of class, you keep working on it. Now's my time to remind you, we are more than 3/4 of the way through the semester. So now would be a good time to kind of start thinking about it. You've got more assignments to put in there. On exercise 127, we will spend some time going through portfolio covers, binding options, and kind of how you put the whole thing together. But we're coming up toward the end. So just for reminder purposes, we have this week, Monday and Wednesday. Next week is Thanksgiving week, but we do have Monday and Wednesday. of next week. You don't get it off, unlike my kids that get the whole week off. No, I'm not bitter about that at all. So you do have Monday and Wednesday of next week. So there's 2 days this week, 2 days next week. We come back after Thanksgiving break for 1 week. So there's 2 days that week. That gets us to 6 days, 6 class days, and then the following Monday your portfolio is due. Then the semester is essentially over. So there's not a lot of time left. Okay? So just trying to remind you, just trying to throw it out there. I know you guys don't want to think about that, but it is what it is, and that's what's happening as we go forward. So today we're going to work on exercise 124, which is essentially taking that AutoCAD and bringing it into SketchUp and working with it. So this is something that I really like to cover because people spend time working on drawings, and typically those drawings can happen in AutoCAD. They can even happen in another program. And once you have your kind of basic floor plan and elevations worked out, you want to bring it into the 3D realm and make it a 3D model. And it is certainly possible that some of you might do the design work in 3D. You might start in SketchUp or you might start in Rhino and then kind of go backwards. But in this sense, we started in AutoCAD. So how do we get that AutoCAD file into SketchUp and start working with it? It's actually a little bit nastier than it should be, but it is SketchUp, so it is what it is. So I went ahead and I opened up my AutoCAD. This was what I had last class. And I have my elevation views ready. I have my floor plan ready. All of that saved. I do have my layout from when we did our layout work. This part doesn't matter. So unlike Illustrator, where we took this and went into Illustrator and did our post-processing, this time all we care about is the actual model space. So I'm going to make sure that this is saved. I know it is because I just opened it. So I'll make sure it's saved. And then I'm going to open up SketchUp. And it's in the SketchUp 2019 folder, and we're going to open up SketchUp 2019. The version here is 2019, but it's slightly outdated, so it's probably going to throw up a window saying, are you sure you want to update it? You don't want to update it because if you update it as soon as the computer restarts, it'll go back to the old version and you'll be stuck. So just use the version that's on the computer. So I'm going to work in architectural inches as my units. I want to make sure that those match what I drew in AutoCAD. So I was working in architectural inches there. I'm going to make sure that it's working here. So I'm going to create a new architectural inches SketchUp. And there we go. We have, on these school computers, we have SketchUp Pro. There is a free SketchUp that you can use and you can download. The difference there is some of the more advanced features, the imports and the exports, aren't available to you. So if you have the free version, you probably want to use the school version to bring in the AutoCAD or to do some of the exports. But you can work on it at home. It's a cross-compatible thing. It's not like AutoCAD where once it touches the student version, you're stuck with those little things around the outside that you can easily get rid of in InDesign, but whatever. In this version, you can flip back and forth between them, no big deal. So if you have your free student version, you can work with that. So the way SketchUp works is pretty self-explanatory. We're in a three-dimensional space here, and we have it's set up like AutoCAD, where it does have an x-axis and a y-axis. The difference here is it also has a z-axis. The blue is the z. It's going up in 3 dimensions. One thing I like to point out, and I usually do this in the lecture that you guys don't get, is that SketchUp can get a little funky as you look at a drawing because of the perspective that it's set up in. It's a pretty wide angle lens on the camera. So if I was drawing a square, there's a square. If I drew this same square, it's a 4 foot by 4 foot square. If I drew it over here, oops. It's not going to look like a square. Do you guys see that? So this is 4 feet by 4 feet. This is also 4 feet by 4 feet. It just gets really skewed when it gets to the edges. So I like to point that out as something that you have to get used to in SketchUp working with, because the closer you are to the origin or the closer you are to the center of your view, the more accurate it's going to look. And so just something to be aware of. It's a quirk that's in SketchUp. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all of that. I don't need any of that. I don't need the little guy. I don't need any of it. And the first thing I'm going to do is bring in that AutoCAD file. So I'm going to go to File and then Import. And I'm going to go find on my flash drive that AutoCAD file. So let's see here. There was my AutoCAD file, and I'll click on Import. And it'll give me a summary of the AutoCAD entities imported. Once I'm done, I'll click Close, and there we go. It brings it in for me. There's a few outliers. Not quite sure what this is way over there. Not something that I need to worry about. So I'm going to go ahead and take that. So when it comes in, AutoCAD automatically groups this together. So I'm going to right-click and say Explode to get myself out of that group. And then I can delete this piece over here. That was unnecessary. And I can zoom in here. Whoops. Sorry, I'm going to end up doing that. In Rhino, you right-click to orbit. In SketchUp, you middle mouse to orbit. So if I hold down middle mouse, I can then orbit. I'm going to get those screwed up because I'm so used to Rhino that I will right-click frequently. It's just a quirk of it. So anyway, here's my plan. I have all my my contour lines that are available here, but I really have a lot of stuff that I just don't need when it comes to modeling this in 3D. So the most important thing we can do once we bring AutoCAD in is to actually strip out all the stuff we don't need. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to start deleting things. And I'll do that using, over here in my default tray, I'm going to expand the layers selection here. And when I do that, I'll see all the layers that were in my AutoCAD file. So we'll start, say, with the topography layer right here. Now, I can turn on and turn off the topography just like I've done in AutoCAD. The problem with this is that SketchUp, when you turn off a layer, doesn't remove it from your scene. And if I were to still draw, let's say, a box here, draw that box, see how it fills in these odd surfaces? Even if I were to turn off the topography and draw that, it's still cutting up my surface in these awkward ways. So instead of doing that, we're going to actually look at the topography layer. Let's see if I can find it again. There it is right there. Instead of turning it on and turning off, I'm going to right-click on it. I hope. Oh, never mind. I'm going to click the little minus symbol here, and it's going to say, do you want to delete these layers? When I delete the layers, it's telling me there's objects on the layer. Do I want to move the contents? Do I want to move the contents to the default layer, the current layer, or just delete the contents? In this scenario, I just want to delete the contents. Remember, I imported the AutoCAD file, so if you mess something up, you can always re-import the AutoCAD file and get it back. So I'm going to delete that. And now if I were to draw that same rectangle, it's not going to get divided up by those lines anymore. So I'm really going to go through and try to pare these things down. So I have a layer for guides here. It's turned off. We'll go ahead and delete that. We'll delete the contents. I don't need the guides. All right, let's look here. My furniture, those pieces, I don't need those. I know initially you think you need those. Basically, all I need are the walls, in all likelihood. So furniture, we'll get rid of that. And I'll delete the contents there. Perfect. Let's see what else. Walls, I am going to need the walls, so I'll leave those. The kitchen, I don't need the kitchen, so we'll click the little minus sign, delete the contents. There we go. The roof, I don't even know what's on the roof layer. But we'll go ahead and delete that. So the windows here, I'm gonna hold off on deleting those for just a second. Let's see what's on this layer 1. I don't know. Let's go ahead and just delete that. Now my elevations, those are important. So we're going to leave those elevations on. The doors, these are the swings of the doors. I don't need the swings of the doors. So we'll go ahead and delete those. There's my furniture. We'll go ahead and delete the furniture. We'll go ahead and delete that. All right, so I'm down now to the walls, the windows, and the elevations. So I'm going to take a closer look at my floor plan here. And in this scenario, I might need to manually go in and delete a few things. Like I know I don't need this line, so we'll go ahead and select that and delete that. That's a mistake there. We'll delete that. Those need to go away. Those need to go away. Those need to go away. Looks like I'm missing a few lines in there, so I might fix those. Let's see, that part of the door shouldn't be there. right, that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to go ahead and look at my windows here for a second. And yeah, that's just the glass. I'll go ahead and get rid of those. I don't need those because I'm still seeing the dividing pieces. So we'll go ahead and get rid of the windows layer. And we'll delete the contents there. So I'm down to the walls. That's good. And the elevations. That's good as well. Oop, there's a little extra piece. So I'm really taking care to make sure that I've gotten rid of almost everything in my drawing. Like that. All right, that looks pretty good. So I have walls and I have elevations. Layer 0, by the way, is the default SketchUp layer. So now that I have these pared down, it may be a little bit easier if I took them and I moved them. I'll use the move tool here, just closer to the origin. It'll be less distortion as I'm working. Okay, so the next piece of this puzzle is to actually make each one of these a group. So I'm going to go ahead and use my select tool here. I'm going to select the floor plan. I'm going to right click, and I have two options. I can make it a group or I can make it a component. Either one of these is acceptable. I've seen documentation that says making a component is useful because you can go in and edit the component later. For what we're doing with it, a group is satisfactory. It's just grouping all these objects together. We're going to end up drawing over them long term anyway. So you've got your choice here. I'm going to go ahead and make this one a group, and it connects those together. And I'm also going to take each of these individual elevations and make those groups as well. So let's right click and say make group. Right click on this one and say oops. So I'm selecting it and then right clicking and saying make group. Right clicking, selecting and saying make group. Right clicking and make group. So I have individual groups for all of these pieces, and they're also separated by their current layers. My layers for my elevations and my layers for the floor plan or the walls. So let's start first with the floor plan itself. So I'm right there. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to establish a layer for 3D. So I'll come over here to layers. I'm going to click the little plus sign, and I'll call this, let's call it 3D. I also want to make sure that that is the current layer. So I'll click over here, and you see that that little pencil changes to be on the 3D layer. When I do that, whenever I create a shape, it's going to be on that layer. Oh, it's the current layer, so I can't turn it off. But this is on that layer. If I were to select it, we can come over here to Entity Info, and it would say Layer is going to be on 3D. So what I need to do now is I need to go ahead and start to fill in this particular shape. So the easiest thing to do would be to start with my Lines tool, right here, my little pencil tool, and I'm going to trace all the way around the outside of my floor plan. So I'm drawing over the outside here. And as soon as I come back to where I started, you'll see that it will fill in the interior of my floor plan with the surface. The surface hasn't been divided up just yet. So the next thing I need to do is to start to divide up this particular surface. Now, the way SketchUp works is whenever you draw a line or a shape on top of a surface, it will divide that surface by the line. So if I were to draw a line from here to here, it would divide that big surface into two smaller surfaces. So I can do the same thing on the other walls. So I could draw this line around here. And I think I missed the line there. There we go. And that then divides this piece of wall from this floor. So I'm going to work my way around the various walls and trace over the top of them. until I essentially extract the walls from that large floor itself. Like that. So now that wall's separate. So I keep working my way around. Now the other thing that you can do is on a wall that's more simply shaped, you can use the rectangle tool to draw the rectangle over the wall to separate it. Now in that case, my wall also includes this little piece there, so I could divide so that that's separate. The other thing that's the way SketchUp works is if I delete a line segment that's in between two surfaces, so if I delete that line segment there, this surface becomes one surface. So if I have a surface that's divided, let me do it again. I'll do it over here on this one. Let's say that I drew that, which gives me, oh, come on, which gives me that surface. And then I went back and I drew another box around that surface there. So I now have that surface and that surface. If I want these two surfaces to become one surface, all I have to do is take that little line segment and delete it, and that now becomes one surface. So I'm going to keep working my way around the rest of the surfaces, like that. And how you do this is really up to you, whether you want to trace around it or not. The other option that you can do that I've had some people have success with is you could take your group and you could explode your group, and that theoretically would make all of the lines cut through the surface. I'll try that over here. Sometimes it doesn't work, which is why I get nervous about doing it. The idea here is that if I right-click and I say explode, it may chop up my surface into its component pieces. In this case, it did work. But I caution you because sometimes if you do the explode, it doesn't work, and it's easier to just trace around your objects. So it's really up to you as to what strategy you want to employ. Okay, so now it's time to start building this up in 3 dimensions. And so to do that, I'm going to use the push-pull tool, this one right here, and I'll start pulling up or extruding my walls into my surface. So I have to have some general idea of how tall these walls would be. So let's start with this wall here. I think this one was supposed to be 12 feet, so I'll go ahead and click on the push-pull tool, and I'll pull this wall up to be at 12 feet. And just like in AutoCAD, all I have to do is while I'm moving the object, type in 12 apostrophe. It's down in the lower right corner there. You can see the distance. Whoops, sorry, I didn't push enter. 12 feet, enter, and there it is at 12 feet. I could do it with this line, and that would be 12 feet, enter. There we go. I could do it with this piece, and I could go up. Now, this center piece is not quite so tall, so I'm actually going to add a line from there to there to separate this wall and that wall. So I'll go ahead and take this one, and I'll push-pull. Same thing. And this time, instead of typing 12 feet, I'll just come to where I line up with this other one and snap across. So I know the height's the same. Here we go. This center section was shorter, so it was maybe 8 feet. There we go. And that's going to end up being a window, so I'm going to do the column instead. There we go. And this one ended up being a little bit taller, but same thing where I have this doorway, so I need to split that off. So we'll go right there and right there. And we'll push-pull this one up at, I think it was at 10 feet. And then we can pull up the rest of these. That one was also at 10 feet. This one was at 10 feet, like that. As was this, as was that, and this one was at 8 feet. So you see how I'm kind of working my way up like that? So the next piece of this is to start adding where the roofs go. And so we have a variety of strategies for how that ends up playing out. I'm going to use the pencil tool here, and I'll start with this larger room. Essentially what I need to do is I need to connect from here to there, and then I need to go across that opening, so I'll just continue tracing around. Same thing, I need to trace around that door, and then that becomes a solid piece. I also need the top of the door here, there, and there. And if I come around here, I need the top of that door, there, and there. I haven't filled in above the door just yet, so I could use my push-pull tool on that surface and come down. That was 12 feet, so we'll come down by 4 feet. There we go, for that particular door. And same thing, we'll come down here by 4 feet, like that. So notice that this object is white and this object is blue. It just has to do with how SketchUp's seeing the faces. We can fix it afterward with materials, or when we go to do our exports, we're going to end up doing it as just white and black anyway. So it really doesn't matter at this point. If it bugs you, you can either apply a new material, or you can right-click on the surface and say, what is it? Reverse faces, and it'll reverse so that it's white on the outside. Not necessary, but if you want to do it, you can. This surface here is divided up into these individual surfaces based on those stairs. I can go through, and I don't need these to be divided up, so I could delete those. Oops. Like that. Likewise, I can actually delete this and delete that and have the surface carry over the top of my door. Like that. I do need some thickness to the roof, so I can once again use the push-pull tool. And I have two options here. I could push, depending on the height that I need, I could push down or I can pull up, either way. The height that I put in was the overall height, so I'm going to push down by 1 foot. And then it looks like I need to fill back in one more time. Sometimes you can get away with just drawing a diagonal and then deleting that diagonal later. And that's then making the top. Now in this scenario, the top of my building here, it doesn't have a sloped roof. If you have a sloped roof, sometimes it's useful to start using the elevations to your advantage. So let's think about the elevations for a second, and I'll use those to work on this side of the building. So the elevations right now are laying flat on the ground. I need to get those to rotate up and position correctly so that I can use them to my advantage. So in this scenario, rotating in SketchUp works really easy when you have a three-dimensional object, not so easy when you have a flat two-dimensional object. So I'm going to give myself a little help. I'm going to go ahead and come to the Shapes tool here, and I'll just create a little box, something like that. Once I create that box, I'll use the push-pull tool to pull it up. Doesn't really matter the size of the box, something like that. And then I can select both the box and my elevation view and use the rotate tool. The protractor here, when I have the box, will allow me to shift direction. So I could rotate in the red direction here, for example. And I can then say I want to rotate it up like that. There's a point at which it will say on blue axis. That's where we know that it's vertical and standing upright. So I'll go ahead and I'll delete that box. I don't need that box anymore. It was just to help me do the rotation. So same thing with this one. I'll create a box. It doesn't even have to be directly on or snapped to your elevation. I just need that box to help me do the rotation. Now I could select those. I can use my rotate tool. This time it was in the green direction. There we go. And there's my snap there. I can then get rid of the box. So you see I'm using the box and then deleting the box. Come around to this side. Perfect. I need that box again. And I'll take my elevation and I'll rotate. There we go. And I'll delete that box. Last one. Oh, need the box first. Push, pull. Oh, come on. And then we'll use the rotate tool. Like that. Now, in this scenario, I have all my elevations standing upright, but they don't necessarily line up to my building just yet. Some of them are low, some of them are high. As we come down here and we take a look, you can see that some of them are low and some of them are high. I need to make sure that the finished floors line up on all sides. So I'm going to start with this one right here. I know where the top step is, so I can use a line. My top step would be right here. I can pull that line out right along the green axis. There it is, so that it's nice and long. Then I'll use my selection tool here, and I'm going to make sure, well, this one happened to line up correctly, that the top of the stairs line up with that plane. Let me do the front one over here. So once again, there's a door, that's the top. So I need to make sure that it lines up. If I were to draw a line right here, out, let me do this edge right there, out like that. I need to make sure that that lines up, which it happens to line up. So I got lucky with the first two. I know, however, that this one does not line up. In this particular drawing, I don't have the dashed line that a lot of you have of where the finished floor would be, so I'll have to use one of the other pieces of information for reference. So in this scenario, I'm going to go ahead and draw a line. We'll go from right there out, like that. Okay, and it needs to line up with that corner. So I'm going to go ahead and use my move tool to move up such that it lands on that edge, like that. So now that one lines up. This one over here, same thing, it has to line up. So I'll draw from right there, or actually I have the door, even better. I'll do it right from the door. Making sure I'm on axis. And yep, that one lines up as well. So once I have all of those lined up correctly, I can delete these lines because I don't need them anymore. And I can use these elevations to help me as a reference. So I can see here what the windows look like, for example. I can see what the heights should be, where the height should end. And so I can use that whenever I need it. If I had a peaked roof on top of this, I would also go through, I really should do an example with a peaked roof, and I can connect from the peak to the peak on the two elevation views and start to draw in where that would go. So let me go ahead and finish this off. I need to add the roof in this section. So same thing, I'll enclose it by coming across like that. And let's see, I have to enclose there, right there, right there. There we go. Now that one's enclosed. I can use the push-pull tool to pull that one down by 1 foot. I can tell what that 1 foot would be by over here. And you can tell how I'm starting to kind of work my way through this. I can go through once I have that top surface, and I can actually delete a lot of these lines. They will still be down here for my walls. I just don't need the upper lines. Although, again, it doesn't really matter. So I can clean that up just a little bit like that. Last little piece was right in here. There we go. So I need to be able to pull this one across. So we'll come over there. We'll come over there. And then I was able to fill that particular piece in. Same thing with my push-pull. Like that. So you see I'm starting to build those pieces up. Okay? When it comes to doing the windows, right, this is a fairly complicated set of windows. Let me do the door. I'll do this door because this one will be a little bit easier. It's not quite so complicated. So the first thing that I'll do is in here, I'm going to fill in where the door would be. So my door is right in here. So I will draw across at where the door would be and create a surface. Then I will take the edges of this door and I'll draw a line. As long as it's on the green axis, I'll keep going until I hit the face. There it is. And then I can come across, and that's now divided the door top and bottom. Well, it should have. Come back here. Sometimes, by the way, it's helpful if you move these elevations a little closer so you don't have to zoom in and zoom out. So let me use the move tool. There we go. And I want to move along that green axis. There it is. It's a little bit closer. And then I can draw from each of these. Like that. Draw this. There we go, on face. That gives me that. I need the upper corner. There we go. Then I can use my rectangle tool and connect that like that. And you can see that I've created the glass. Come on, there we go. I've created that glass separate from the door. Looks like I can delete those right now. It looks like I'm having trouble with that upper line. For some reason, it didn't quite snap correctly. So let's do... There we go. I'll just create that line and draw it straight on. So now I have the door itself. There's the door, and there's the little piece of glass. I can continue working with my push-pull tool to create some depth here. So I can use push-pull, and I could say, you know what, let's push this. Oh, that was not the one I wanted. We'll push this one back just a little bit. We'll say maybe 1 inch. And then we'll push this one back maybe by 0.5 inches to create the glass panel itself. Oops. There we go. I had to compensate for that first inch. And so now I've cut out and I've made that little door as an opening. If I look at it from the inside, to kind of work our way around and see, where am I? To go through that wall. There we go. Oh, come on. Right like that. There's the inside of the door, and it looks pretty reasonable. I may need to do a little bit more pushing and pulling from the inside. I may need to add some thickness to the door, so let's go maybe another inch there. And there we go. All right, and so that created that little door. I can go ahead and I can delete these two lines because they're not serving any purpose right now, and I have that door. I'm not overly worried about materials. Like I said, if you really want to see that piece of glass as a piece of glass, you can come over to your default tray, open materials, and then look for glass and mirrors, and you can pick a translucent glass and apply it so that you can kind of see through it. It's not necessary that you do that. We can do that in post-processing in Photoshop, but if you want to see it that way, that's fine. So it would take me a long time to work through all of the windows. Be aware that if you created a window and you liked it, you could then reuse it. So over here, I used this same group of windows several times. I could make the window as part of the elevation view, which might be the easiest. Let me show it to you this way. Say, okay, let me make there's my first set of windows, and let me trace over there, there, and there. So I have individual panes and I have the frames. Let me use the push-pull on the frames. And so we'll say that this is maybe 1.5 inches. Good. And let me come to the back side here, and I'm going to pull the frame out this way by maybe 0.5 inches. There we go. And so now I have that glass. And so I could go through with my glass tool, and we could apply the glass to that window. So what I did was I created the window in the elevation view. Then I can take the whole set of windows. I can right-click and say Make Group, which makes it a group. I can then take this set of windows and I can copy it. I can either go to Edit and then Copy, or I can hold down, I think it's the Control key, so I can use Move and then hold down the Control key. Yeah, when I do that, I get the little plus next to my cursor, and I can say, okay, let me copy from right here, and there's 1, 2, and 3. Then I could take all of these windows that I just created, there, 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 and there, and I could move all of them. Move it from right there back until they're at the center. Come on, snap for me. I'm just going to go ahead. Oh, come on. Sometimes it's a matter of being able to see what you're after here. We'll snap them to right there. I may have to touch this up a little bit. This needs to come toward the outside like that. And essentially then I've created the windows. Oh, looks like I didn't quite make my building tall enough, but you guys get the idea. So sometimes it's an easier solution to make it out here, make it a group, and then bring it into the building. Remember that in SketchUp, if you're having trouble where you've created something and it's constantly being divided up and you try to move it, so let's say that I created this and I said, oh, wait, I needed to move over here. Let me take, my mouse is not working today, and let me move this, and it stays attached like that. The way around that is to right-click and say Make a Group. And then as you keep drawing, when you go to move it, it's always going to move independently of the objects. It won't be attached anymore. So the group is the way to keep them from being attached. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys start working. I don't want to keep using up all your time. Really, this is about modeling. I think most of you are pretty familiar with SketchUp and getting started. If you're not, it's okay. You will become pretty familiar with it pretty quick. There's not too many tools to worry about. Remember, delete the extra non-important AutoCAD layers. That's the most important thing you can take away with this, is pare down your AutoCAD layers, start with the simplest group of lines that you can get, because it's going to end up being complicated if you don't. All right? I'll let you guys start working. Oh, by the way, at the end, I do ask you to post, I think I say an interior and an exterior view. Just give me one or the other. I just want one view of your 3D model. Okay? You're going to do that by going to File and then Export 2D Graphic. It'll create a JPEG for you. That's what you'll post.